Good day, everybody. Hope you're doing well. This is the last video for fiscal policy. In the next couple days, I'll be getting monetary policy up, and then after that, international economics and income distribution. But let's finish up fiscal policy. So today is April 8th, and we are going to talk about demand side economics. All right, as a review before we get into this, I want to go back to our model. So we have this, and this is on the macro level, and we are going to be talking about everything in the economy. Everything that we produce in the economy is real GDP. Real GDP goes here, and the price of everything is the price level. I got my aggregate demand curve. That's the demand for every single thing. This is the aggregate supply curve, and we are currently operating where aggregate supply and aggregate demand intersect. This is where we are. This is where we are. Now, it seems like we're going to be going into a recession, guys, with all the people losing their jobs and everything, and everybody on lockdown. So let's say that the economy should be beyond that point. This is where we are, but the economy should be operating beyond that point. So I'm going to put my long run aggregate supply right there. Long run aggregate supply. All right, so this is the model that we have. Here's where we want to be. This is how much we should be producing, and this is how much we are producing. We're producing a lot less than we should be. So we are in a recession according to this model. Now, what we talked about in the last video is, well, using fiscal policy, and fiscal policy is tax and spend. How do we get out of this recession? Well, supply side economists would say, okay, you do everything you can to help the businesses. You give them tax cuts, so they have more money left over so they can invest in capital. You deregulate, you take off the regulations on where you can drill for oil, so businesses are able to drill more for oil and increase their land. And you do things like educate your workers more so they're more productive, land, labor, and capital. So you move aggregate supply to the right, and hopefully you move it to the right far enough that we are now aggregate supply is right there. We are out of the recession. So that's the supply side argument. You help businesses by deregulation, by educating workers, and by tax cuts so they have more money left over to increase supply. That worked fine up until about 1929 and 1930 when the Great Depression happened and supply wasn't an issue. It was a demand issue. And if we think about what causes demand to shift, it's consumer spending, it's business spending or business investment, businesses going out and buying robots and plants and equipment, which once they're installed would turn into capital, the government spending, and net exports. So net exports, guys, means exports minus imports. So we have this situation. A demand side economist would say, to get out of this recession, we don't want to worry about supply, we want to worry about increasing demand. We move demand to the right until it's at that intersection point, and that's where we want to be. They would argue that we take aggregate demand, which is there, and increase aggregate demand by moving it to the right until we are out of the recession. That's their argument. All right, so another model for this would be this, ladies and gentlemen. In an ideal world, the economy is growing at a nice, steady rate. We talked about this before. I don't know, economy is getting bigger by 3% a year. We're producing 3% more stuff every year. But unfortunately, the economy doesn't grow in a regular, standard, same amount every year pattern. It tends to go through periods where things are really fast and things are really slow. This is called the business cycle. It goes up and it goes down. It goes up and it goes down. Now in this time right here, it's actually, we're working beyond where we should be. This is called an inflationary period. And in an inflationary period, inflation is the problem. Because we are operating beyond our capacity, the economy is going faster than it should. It's going too fast. Now down here is unemployment is a problem, and this is called a recession. The economy is going slower than it should. We're in a recession. More people are unemployed, and inflation tends not to be the problem. So anyway, we are going to be talking about the demand side of all this thing, the demand side argument, and we got C plus I plus G plus X. They are the demand shifters of the economy. Now there was this gentleman, and he's probably the most famous economist of the 20th century, and his name is John Maynard Keynes. And he was British, and he lived from 1883 until 1946. He died right after the war. And he was a demand side economist. He believed that the way you get yourself out of a recession or a depression is not by helping businesses, it's by helping create more demand. And let's concentrate on the recession part right now. In a recession, a lot of people are out of work. And the people that do have jobs are worried about losing their jobs. So in a recession, consumers do not go out and spend very much. If consumers don't go out and spend very much, then they're not buying a lot of stuff. So businesses see this and they start to cut back themselves. They don't invest a lot. Why make stuff if people aren't buying it? This is what happened in the early 1930s. Why make stuff if people aren't able to buy it? Now it's a global economy. So if the United States is in a recession, that means the rest of the world is in a recession too. And what's going to happen to net exports? Well, they're going to be buying a lot less of our stuff, so net exports are going down. So according to Keynes, in a recession, C plus I plus X are not spending. They are not spending. So the only entity of these four that can spend is the government. So Keynes would argue that in a recession, when C and I and X are not spending, that the government should step in and do the opposite. They should spend. This represents the government. His argument would be that in a time of recession, the government should spend because nobody else is. What should they spend the money on? Things that will last, like new bridges, new roads, new hospitals, new schools. So if you think about it, if they're building all of this stuff that's going to last for years, not only is it going to benefit now, but it's going to benefit in the future. Now, if they start building roads and hospitals and bridges and all this stuff, the people that make that stuff are going to benefit. But they're going to take that money and they're going to eat out, so the restaurateur would benefit. They're going to buy a new television set for their family, so the people who make that will benefit. The purpose is that there's a trickle effect. Not only do the people that are hired to make the roads and the bridges benefit, but because money is spent over and over and over again, it's going to have ramifications for the entire economy. So let's just talk about a recession right here. According to our friend Keynes, in a recession, because consumers are not spending, businesses are not spending, the rest of the world is in the same boat, that the government should increase spending because nobody else. He also argued that in a time of recession, we want to get as much money as possible to consumers and businesses. So the way to do that would be to cut taxes for both people and businesses. So if the government increases spending and decreases taxes, more money is going out and less money is coming into the Treasury Department. This is called deficit spending. the government goes further and further and further into debt. And this is what happened back after the Great Recession of about 10 years ago. The government spent a lot of money with the intent of getting us out of the recession, but it also jacked up the national debt quite a bit. Anyway, so that is what Keynes would say to do in a time of a recession. But there's a solution, according to Keynes, about going further into debt. It happens on this side of the equation. In an inflationary period, consumers are spending a lot of money. They're going down the freeway and they're going too fast. Businesses are doing the same thing. They're spending money and they're spending it fast. And if the United States is in an inflationary period, the rest of the world is as well. So C plus I plus X are going too fast. The government should do the opposite. So what the government should do in an inflationary period, because everybody else is spending too much money, the government should cut back on spending. That's what the government should do then. So during an inflationary period, the government should decrease spending. Because everybody else is spending, they don't want to compete with them, let's just not spend. They recognize that consumers and businesses are spending too much, so taxes should go up. So the government decreases spending and increases taxes. Less money is leaving the Treasury Department, more money is coming in. This is called surplus. They have extra money. John Maynard Keynes would argue that you would take that extra money in the good times and you pay off the debt in the bad times. The government should do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. Now the problem with this type of thinking is it's really easy to spend money. In the good times, our government spends money, and in the bad times, our government spends money. We never get out of debt, which is a problem according to Keynes. So, remember our percentages of the total economy. Consumers about 2/3, business is about 1/6, and government is about 1/6. So this is C plus I, and this is the G part of it. So this goes way up, this goes a little bit down. The idea is the business cycle is not going to disappear altogether, but the inflationary periods, if I average this line and this line, are not going to be as high. And if I average this line and this line, the inflationary period is not going to be, the recessionary period is not going to be too low. Keynesian's ideas is to level out the business cycle so we're not swinging from one extreme to another. That's his main thought. Now, John Maynard Keynes, our friend, was all about fiscal policy. Tax and spend. But the problem with tax and spend, the problem with fiscal policy is if you just do it in the normal way, it takes forever. Remember, the normal budgetary process starts in February with the president. It goes through the House and Senate. They negotiate. By the end of September, in an ideal world, they have it all worked out. They send the bill back to the president and he signs it. So the fiscal policy, tax and spend, takes a good long amount of time. Now there are ways around this. For instance, a couple weeks ago, the government, in an emergency move, decided to increase spending by $2 trillion. They did that outside the normal budgetary process because the economy was in really bad shape, or expected to be in bad shape. But usually, in a normal situation, fiscal policy takes forever. So there are these things, and I'm almost done, guys, called automatic stabilizers. In automatic stabilizers, the whole goal is to even out the business cycle, like I tried to explain just now, only it happens automatically. So if we can make this chart, and this will be the end of it, we have a recession, and we have an inflationary period. In a recession, unemployment is the problem, and in an inflationary period, inflation is a problem. And we have federal income tax, which is a progressive tax. The more you make, the higher percentage you earn. And then we have the SNAP program, Supplemental Nutrition Aid Program. It used to be called food stamps, now it's called SNAP. Let's say we're in a recession. In a recession, a lot of people are out of work. If people are out of work, what's going to happen to federal income tax collection? People are not working, they're not making as much money, so their taxes are going to go down. In a recessionary period, there are a lot of people out of work. What's going to happen to the SNAP program? It's a spending program, helping people buy food. Well, if a lot of people are in need of that food assistance during a recession, SNAP payments are going to go up, and the federal government didn't have to do anything. It happened automatically. So if taxes go down, less money is coming to the Treasury Department, spending is going up, more money is leaving the Treasury Department, they're spending more money than they're bringing in. This is called deficit spending. Deficit, spelled it wrong? Basically what that means is the federal government gets further into debt, which is what John Maynard Keynes said we should do in a recession anyway. In an inflationary period, everybody's working. Everybody who wants a job has a job unless they're between jobs. So if everybody's working and make a lot of money, what's going to happen to federal income tax collection? It's going to go up. People are making more money, so they're going to pay more in taxes. Now, if people are working, do they need supplemental nutrition aid program? Do they need food stamps? No. So spending is going to go down. The Treasury Department has more taxes coming in, less money going out. This is a surplus. And John Maynard Keynes would argue you take that extra money during the good times and you pay off the deficit. I hope this makes sense, guys. I will be putting up your fiscal policy text on Socrative within the next couple days. It's going to be 50 multiple choice questions and true false. You can take it as many times as you want until you get a grade that you're happy with. Take it once, take it 10 times, take it 100 times. The questions are going to be the same every time. The order will just be mixed up. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.